natural that the mathematics will be useful when large numbers are involved in complex situations.
In the world of software, the holy grail, the final problem to solve that fixes all the others, is thought to be AI. Intelligent systems that can iterate upon and beyond themselves. But that's in the world of bits. What about the world of atoms? For the physical world, that dream lies in nanotechnology, where you could work with matter at the atomic scale, building molecules and whole structures, atom by atom. Technically, nanotechnology is a wide array of different things. What I just described is atomically precise manufacturing, or APM, the ability to place atoms exactly where you want them. And that's what we're exploring in this video. But where did that vision first come from? And when can we expect it to be a reality? If this really is the final frontier of hardware, why aren't we pursuing this the way we're pursuing AI? Well, the first step I took to answer that question was to find out who are the people working on the frontier of nanotech. And that led me to Dr. Jeremy Barton, a physical chemist and nanotechnology pioneer.
We have nanotechnology in our computer chips, in the electrodes of our batteries, in our TVs. We have existence proof of nanomechanical technology, intricate systems of nanomachines working together in order to do chemistry and move things around. But we call it life. We are made up of quadrillions of nanomachines. The scale of the technology is identical to the scale of the fundamentals of life.
Norio Taniguchi was a Japanese scientist and the first to explicitly use the term nanotechnology in 1974. Nanotechnology mainly consists of the processing of separation, consolidation, and deformation of materials by one atom or one molecule. In this single sentence, Taniguchi is essentially predicting the field of atomically precise fabrication. The term lay dormant until it was revived in the 1980s by other scientists. But in 2025, I asked Dr. Jeremy Barton how APM might work practically.
You take a reactive molecule, a small cluster of atoms that if they touch something else, they will stick to it. And with positional chemistry, you control how that moves such that it only touches the atoms you want it to react with. So you can think of it like a 3D printer. You're putting atoms in specific locations in 3 dimensions by controlling where they go. And they stick there and they stay. That's positional chemistry. The nanomachines are building very small devices that can do that work, that can actually position atoms or larger molecules and assemble them into more complicated structures.
The wild thing about our current working theory of nanotechnology is that it is eerily similar to how we do manufacturing at the human scale. At the nanoscale, we're in the business of trying to build nano components, manipulator arms, rotary motors, feedstock systems, positional control systems. The list goes on. But in order to move atoms around, first you have to know where they are. You have to see them. And that led me to another researcher in the field, Felix Bennemann, who is working on how we can look into the world of atoms.
ChatGPT is great for quick answers, but when you need writing expertise,
after a few days of this, I was telling my mom definitely very worried.
Through our solar system from the void between the stars actually be an alien spacecraft? On July 1st, 2025, a mysterious visitor designated 3I Atlas was discovered, sparking a fierce debate. Was it a natural comet or, the first definitive proof of extraterrestrial technology? One prominent Harvard scientist fanned the flames of speculation, while NASA pushed back with hard data. What followed was a clash between radical ideas and rigorous evidence. Let's explore this together. The Atlas discovery in Chile. So, how do we even spot these interstellar travelers in the first place? It starts with a constant, vigilant watch of the night sky. The story of 3I Atlas began on July 1st, 2025, at an observatory in Chile. There, a robotic survey system named ATLAS, which stands for Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, detected a faint object at an apparent magnitude of 20, making it about 2.5 million times fainter than the faintest star visible to the naked eye. Led by principal investigator John Tonry, the ATLAS system is a NASA-funded project developed by the University of Hawaii, using its twin half-meter telescopes to scan the entire visible sky every 24 hours. When astronomers calculated the object's trajectory, they saw it was following a sharply hyperbolic path with an orbital eccentricity greater than 1, a definitive sign it wasn't gravitationally bound to our sun. Its orbit was an open curve, meaning it came from deep space and was destined to return there. The object was named 3Y Atlas, with the 3I marking it as the third interstellar object ever discovered. It was racing through our system at a stunning hyperbolic excess velocity of 35 kilometers per second, a truly exceptional catch and a prime target for immediate scientific study. Avi Loeb's controversial hypothesis. But what if a new discovery doesn't fit neatly into our existing boxes? This is where science can get heated. Enter Avi Loeb, a Harvard astrophysicist and the head of the Galileo Project, an initiative dedicated to searching for evidence of extraterrestrial technology. Having previously sparked debate by suggesting the first interstellar object, Oumuamua, could be artificial due to its observed non-gravitational acceleration, Loeb turned his attention to 3I Atlas. He pointed to its early lack of a visible tail and what he described as a trajectory that might eventually show subtle deviations not caused by gravity. In a paper released on the RxIV preprint server, a common practice for rapidly disseminating new ideas, he proposed his radical hypothesis. If the object continued to show no outgassing, it might be a technological artifact. He even raised the hypothetical possibility of malign intent, suggesting it could use the sun for a gravitational slingshot to alter its course towards an undisclosed target. Loeb was careful to frame this as an intellectual exercise, admitting a natural comet was the simpler explanation. Still, the mere mention of alien technology from a scientist of his stature was enough to ignite a global media firestorm and put serious pressure on the astronomical community to respond. Media sensation versus scientific method. Here's the thing about alien theories. They travel faster than light speed in the media. Avi Loeb's hypothesis for 3I Atlas was sensational. Headlines around the world, from online blogs to major news networks, quickly latched onto the most dramatic elements of his proposal, the possibility of an alien craft with potentially hostile intentions. This created a fascinating public spectacle, but also highlighted a fundamental tension in how science works. The scientific method is a slow, methodical process that can take months or even years of observation and peer review before any conclusion is reached. In stark contrast, the news cycle operates in mere hours. The global conversation was suddenly centered on a dramatic, unproven idea, while the painstaking work of collecting hard data was just beginning. This put NASA in the position of having to respond not just to a scientific hypothesis, but to a worldwide media event fueled by one of the most compelling questions in human history. It was a classic case of exciting speculation, published on a preprint server before peer review, getting a massive head start on the deliberate, evidence-based investigation. This gap between speculation and verification is where misinformation can thrive. NASA's comprehensive investigation. When a claim is that big, you need the world's premier space agency to weigh in. So, how did NASA approach the mystery of 3I Atlas? They didn't rely on a single instrument. They launched a coordinated, multifaceted observation campaign, allocating dozens of hours of precious observation time on their flagship observatories. This involved the Hubble Space Telescope, using its Wide Field Camera 3 to capture incredibly detailed visible light images, and the James Webb Space Telescope, using its NARSPEC instrument to analyze the object's infrared light for chemical signatures. A network of powerful ground-based observatories, like the Keck Observatory in Hawaii with its massive 10-meter twin telescopes, also joined the effort to track it continuously. This wasn't just about taking pictures. The goal was a deep analysis under the guidance of experts like Dr. Karen Meach, a leading astrobiologist renowned for her work on distant comets.
Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins. Listen, no matter how smart you are, even if you're the best neurosurgeon in the world, you don't do neurosurgery on yourself, because you're...
Dr. Greer, it's so good to see you. Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. Good to see you too.
I know I'm fired up, and everyone at Gaia is fired up for your event coming up in November 8th and 9th. We are so excited to have you back on campus.
Great. Yeah, no, it'd be great to be there. It's always a wonderful crowd and very supportive venue for what we're doing, not only on disclosure, but on the science of consciousness and the whole spectrum of the cosmology. Yeah, so and we're going to do a deep dive into that part of it as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to jump into some really hot topic questions right now in the world of disclosure. But before we do that, people are listening. Today is the last day of the early bird special for the event. So if you really want to go, click on the link in the description below, okay? So let's jump right in, Dr. Greer. I'm excited for this.
Sure.
So probably the biggest question, the most exciting thing happening in the space right now that everyone's talking about is 3i Atlas. I'm hearing from Avi Loeb that it could be potentially something extraordinary. I'm hearing from NASA that no, it's just a comet. And am I hearing from all sorts of different types of people on the internet that it could be something like an alien mothership or some sort of extraterrestrial race? We need clarity, Dr. Greer. Can you please provide some clarity on what you think 3i Atlas is or what you're hearing?
Well, first of all, it'd be unlikely to be a comet. It'd be more likely to be a rogue asteroid rock. Comets are more gaseous. And anyway, so as far as it being anything under intelligent control, I haven't seen any data to suggest that. Now, if it does have artificial components to it, which I haven't seen, then there's also other possibilities. For example, there have been civilizations in our solar system and outside our solar system for millions of years. This could be the equivalent of some space junk from a long time ago that's drifted in. There are a lot of possibilities that I can think of. Of course, the internet, the hysteria, and Avi Loeb jump immediately to some of the more sensational ones, although he's backtracked on that, saying that he was saying theoretically it could be this, which is a sort of a psyop. So my understanding of the cell that Avi Loeb is part of, the UFO connected cell group that he's connected to is a very prominent disinformation, gaslighting operation. So I'm pretty sure that anything from those quarters, I would look at very skeptically, particularly when it begins to track towards a threat from outer space. Remember, this is what Werner von Braun on his deathbed told my dear friend Carol Rosen, who was his right-hand assistant in 1974, that over a period of decades, they would roll out this alien threat to sort of unite the world around sort of a totalitarian, militaristic dystopia that would be looking at anything from space as a threat that we should fight, which would then build military and intelligence spending. And that whole scheme was concocted in about 1953, 54. And we have documents in our archive to prove it. If you go to dpiarchive.com, it's the Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive. There's terabytes of data in there. We put everything in, except sensitive stuff that had names and sources that we can't disclose. And it clearly goes through what that whole objective has been, all the way tracking for the last 70 years, since the early to mid 50s. So I think that I would look at it I look at these things very skeptically, particularly when it becomes an internet zeitgeist of hysteria and we're being invaded. Maybe this is what the drone stuff, right? And you remember last year at this time and all the drone stuff, and it was a psyop. All of those were man-made. We know who were doing it. I know the head of a team that was doing reconnaissance of them out of Lockheed Skunk Works. And it was to see how the media and the public could react and how much hysteria in the White House and in Congress they could create. Look, this is the oldest game in the intelligence playbook. And of course, the problem with, let's just say, retail ufology and pop culture is that there's not any depth of intelligence analysis. And as you know, I've been briefing people like the director of the CIA since 1993. So I come to this from a very, I don't know if you say skeptical, wary. I'm very wary of things that have that spin on it, because I know that that's been the long-term agenda. So this Atlas, comet, asteroid, whatever it is, I can't disprove, you can't prove a negative. I can't disprove that it's not of artificial manufacture. But even if it was to be one, remember, any interplanetary civilization is not going to be drifting along at that speed. It isn't going to happen. They're going to be moving in hyperspace. They're going to be going, like teleportation, be going from point A to B like this, right? Quantum entanglement, but on a macro scale with a whole spacecraft. I'm going to describe for Gaia when I'm there, how these technologies work and how they're related to quantum entanglement, but also to conscious field and consciousness. There's a whole nexus where all this comes together. And the term I use is transdimensional interstellar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're interstellar, but they're transiting different dimensions. And we're going to do a deep unpacking of that for everyone at Gaia in November. So my intention is to get clarity on the cosmology and then understand it. But if you understand the physics, I know, my uncle was Northrop Grumman his whole life, and he worked on the lunar module team that put the first man on the moon. And, when you're not talking about things drifting along at 100,000 miles per hour or 50,000 miles per hour. You're talking about things that are beyond the speed of light, what we call superluminal travel. So any legitimate interstellar craft has that capability, because otherwise to go from point A to B, even from our closest star system, would take thousands or millions of years at something less than the speed of light. Now, when you're talking about this object drifting along at a few tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of miles per hour, that sounds fast, but from an interstellar, the distances, everyone should remember 1 light year is the distance that a light goes at 186,000 miles every second for a whole year. So every second of a year, that's the distance. That's what a light year is. It's not a measure. It's a measurement of distance, not time. So a light year is that amount of distance. So even our closest stellar neighbors would be, at that speed, it'd be ludicrous that they could ever get here. So this is the whole problem. And anyone who's an astrophysicist or someone at Harvard who doesn't know that, I'd be very worried about their intellectual acumen.
Who's coming in the driveway?
My daughter.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarity. I feel the same way you do, but I can't put it in the words you just put it. Thank you.
Okay.
That's what I needed. I need to give that to all my friends and be like, this is exactly what I think is going on. But a
Yeah.
follow-up question to that is, when you talk about the threat-based narrative, has specifically the idea of an alien mothership coming to get us been talked about in these programs before?
Well, they create that. So in other words, let's unwind this a little bit so that we get some sort of foundation for everyone listening.
Please.
We have people on our team who have been able to confirm from being in classified projects, as well as in the CIA and NSA vaults where the secret documents are kept, that we mastered gravity control and propulsion in October of 1954. So I was born in June of 1955. I'm 70. So that's 71 years ago, right? So when you look at this, 71 years ago, we mastered gravity control. Before that, we had gravity propulsion systems, but they weren't stable. This is why you see in the early 50s and late 40s, some old home movies of man-made UFOs that flutter like a leaf. Those were our experimental ones, not the extraterrestrial.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, I hate to say it. I mean, it's the science of this does matter, even though we live in a very anti-science time, and there's very little valid science going on in ufology, as you know. So the problem becomes, if they have had, these covert programs have had that capability since October of 54 to have stable electrogravitic gravity control craft, and they have. That means that by now, 71 years later, there are some extraordinary things that are being seen that everyone says, oh, it's got to be alien, it's extraterrestrial. No, it's not. It's from the Lockheed Skunk Works, it's Northrop Grumman, some of the very sophisticated ones that are partially living bio-nano machines or Raytheon. We know where they are. We know how they've been used in clandestine operations. This is being looked at by some very senior people in the U.S. government now as criminal activity, because I have said since the 90s that this is the world's largest RICO, racketeering influence corrupt organization running this. And the RICO law was passed in 1970 to take apart the mafia. So now it's got to be used to take apart this cabal of folks doing these things. But their plan was always to use the man-made platforms to deceive the public. Let's give a great example. Many of the triangular craft that you see, there are ones that are extraterrestrial. But what they did was reverse engineer that, and now there's a whole fleet of various sized man-made triangles that are from mainly Northrop Grumman and Raytheon. So this is how easy it is to deceive the public, but by extension, members of Congress, the president, whoever it is. So, not, what does it say? Knowledge is power. And the Vedas, Sanskrit says knowledge is the greatest purifier. So the knowledge of this is important, and the science of it's important, and this trajectory of technological evolution from the 40s and 50s to now is important. And without that information, it's sort of a very superficial. I saw this object. Well, yeah, but where did it come from? Was it actually an interstellar object? Was it something non-human? Or is it actually one of our covert programs setting up a sort of a psychological warfare operation, a psyop? And no one's asking these hard questions properly, and that's what we're trying to bring to light. Because I can tell you at this point, knowing what I know that's going on behind the scenes, this whole area of secrecy is going to get disclosed. But if it gets disclosed deceptively, it'll lead straight to a catastrophe. So what we're trying to do is be sure it's being disclosed truthfully. And that's a very lonely space to be in, frankly. I'll speak personally, because most people either don't have that information, or they're operatives that are deliberately deceiving members of the U.S. government and the media and the public. So this gets into a big, complicated problem here, where what I'm trying to do is assemble the whistleblowers who have that information on not only what's been done with extraterrestrial vehicles, but what we're doing with the man-made tech, high-tech, exotic technology that had been used to stage mutilations, abductions, big events, the whole drone scare. And now there's this thing coming in from space, this Atlas comet, whatever they're calling it. I don't think it's a comet, maybe. I think it's more likely to be a rogue asteroid. But whatever it is, the spin that's being put on it, the hysteria on the internet, the media, is very much looks to me like a psychological warfare operation.
Well, I agree with you. And speaking of whistleblowers, we just had a big, I would say, historic UAP hearing, the third one in 3 years. It seemed significant to me. It seemed more that not necessarily the whistleblowers were bigger or more important or more interesting than years past, but the way Congress was kind of treating it and how they were talking about it. Speaking of your whistleblowers in the UAP hearing, like, what are you hearing? What's going to come next? What did you glean from the hearing, and what is your team working on now?
Well, none of the hearings have had anything substantive yet. Now, none of them. I mean, if you go back to 2000, I would ask your viewers to go back to 2001, look in our archive at the National Press Club event. We had 22 whistleblowers, any one of which were extremely 10 times more consequential than anyone that's been appearing at these hearings. And that's by design. The people who have intercepted the leadership of that committee, Luna, for example, who I briefed years ago, they have been intercepted by folks who are feeding them they're not even whistleblowers, they're minor witnesses, and they're minor people who really, many of them, like Mike Gold, who I know, doesn't know anything about the subject and admits he doesn't. Meanwhile, I turned over a list of about 50 very high value targets who need to be subpoenaed that they won't call. So there's something very odd going on here. And I've been in private meetings up on Capitol Hill in the Senate and the House, and I have brought in many of these high value whistleblowers who have actually worked on the craft or been involved in operations involving both ET and man-made craft, and who are direct firsthand, not secondhand, firsthand witnesses. And curiously, they're not calling any of them. They're not even asking them to appear. They have been blocked. So the real whistleblowers and the real hearings are being blocked by people who have deliberately misinformed and disinformed, actually, people like Miss Luna and others. Now I'm working with other members of the Senate and House who are not being so easily deceived. But the dog and pony show that you're calling these hearings, it's sound and fury signifying nothing, to quote Shakespeare. But now, the night before that hearing, I was at a private gathering with some of them and a few of the members to Congress and got to speak to them. And so there's two tracks going on. There's the thing you're seeing in the public, and there's what's really going on that's significant behind the scenes. And to the extent I can talk about that at Gaia Sphere, I'm going to go into a deep dive into that, because I think the public curious about this need to know how this is operating and what's actually going on. That's going to become, that is very consequential. And I can't talk too specifically, but I can tell you that it's at a very high level here and abroad, and it's very serious, and there's enormous progress. I started this project in 1990, so I was 35 years ago. I was 35, and now I'm so literally half my biological life. And what I've found is that what's happened in the last 2 years, it's mostly behind the scenes, is unlike anything I've seen in 35 years. But
so real progress. You're confident that we're making real progress on disclosure?
Oh yeah, but you're not going to see it on, a hearing like that. Not yet. Now, what we're trying to do is be sure that there's enough evidence that comes out asymmetrically from whistleblowers and evidence that it would force real hearings where the key players would be subpoenaed, and people who have been in these operations and in these underground facilities who we have on our team would be subpoenaed and be under oath. Now, we have them. If you go to our archive, you'll see we have 750 some whistleblowers.
And they're willing to talk. If they're subpoenaed, only if they get subpoenaed.
Some are willing to talk right now, and they still will not be allowed to at these hearings. But the ones who need a subpoena, they'll be subpoenaed. Same thing with law enforcement. And, if a federal agent comes up to you and asks you about something and you lie, that's a felony. So we have people at the very senior level of law enforcement that we've handed everything off to. And those guys are running fast and running hard. So, no, this is enormous progress. I mean, unbelievable progress is going on. So.
Well, I love to hear that. It feels that way as a layperson who doesn't have the connections you do, that things are happening, but I'm only seeing it through the lens of, I'm going to talk to you, it's awesome, or through Congress, because that stuff still seems significant to most people, but they're going to be blown away when they realize how far, how deep, how dark these programs go.
Well, some of the members of Congress have been read on by my team about that, and by me. And, about 4 years ago, senior folks with Senate Intelligence reached out to me, and I was in the SCIF, the Secure Compartment Information Facility, and provided and they said, "What do you have?" I said, "My network, the Disclosure Project, has everything." Remember, we've been gathering this sort of intelligence since the early 90s. So it's a very long process. Now, some of the whistleblowers have died, but we have their evidence and we have their testimony. Interestingly, if you go into our archive, you'll see there's something like 115 or 120 whistleblowers named with their credentials and the audio and video as well as transcripts. But it's sitting right there for everyone who's listening to see, but no one bothers to look. So, one of the big tasks I have is taking multiple terabytes of data and distilling it into, like, we just came out with the latest version of the presidential briefing document. For the first time, I published it. If you go to my site, drstephengreer.com, you will see that you can get a lightly redacted, I mean, some of it's redacted, briefing documents that's been provided to the White House and President, but also the Congress. And if you go into our archive, you'll see a lot of the vast amount of information that resulted in that. But that's only 340 or 50 pages. And when you get to an executive level, like, when you're dealing with a cabinet level person or the president, you got to have it on one sheet of paper. So you have to take 20 terabytes of stuff and put it on one sheet. So that's what I've been doing this all the way back to President Clinton. But now things are happening so quickly that there's strong interest in many quarters. And also, I would say it's also nonpartisan, because everything we've done has always been nonpartisan. Uh, and also I want to point out to Americans who are listening, the world's a big place, right? So we have outreach and are doing things with the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth countries, Canada, Australia, the European Union, elsewhere, and the Vatican, because ultimately when all this comes out, I've written a sample speech. You can find it in our archive for leaders in the world of how they speak about this without panicking the world into some ridiculous alien invasion week on the History Channel, all that. So, the thing is, if this is just an area of hobby, it's a hobbyist thing or dilettantes, it's fun and it's sort of sci-fi and whatnot. When you start peeling it back and it's real, and it is, I wouldn't have given up my medical career to do this if it was some trivial thing. But then you're saying you have to begin to be responsible. What I'm not seeing yet is people treating this responsibly, because you're playing with fire. This information comes out the wrong way. It'd be much better if it was kept secret. So, and the people who are trying to steer it in the threat direction, in the false militaristic direction, those folks are playing with fire. And to the extent that they can deceive key members of Congress or people in the White House, now we're talking about going on a trajectory that would be catastrophic. So we're trying to steer this in a truthful direction with a good outcome, and not a War of the Worlds hysteria outcome. What we want is an era of peace, peaceful contact, enlightenment, high tech, bring the energy technologies out that would transform the planet in a generation, end all poverty and end all pollution. We have them. It's the ultimate peace dividend that should come out, but it has to come out wisely. For example, I have said all the way back to the Clinton era, we cannot let out the things that fly, right? I mean, an anti-gravity so-called or teleportation system could be repurposed in an instant by a rogue state or a terrorist into a missile delivery system. But something that would sit on our desk here, that would run your house, or in your car, that would run your car for energy from the 0 point or quantum vacuum, that should have been out 100 years ago. I'm sure you probably saw the documentary, The Lost Century, where we document 100 years of these lost technologies. But it has to be phased. And because if everything came out at once, unfortunately, the world is in such a state of decay, socially, spiritually, and geopolitically.
Hey man, what's the best advice you can give someone that's in sales?
Switch to Monday CRM.
Oh, awesome, thanks.
Hold up. You're thinking about old school CRMs. Monday CRM has AI capabilities that have changed how we do work, and now my team closes more deals than ever.
Oh, sounds great. Thanks for
Hold
sharing.
up. Hey, I'm not just talking about email composition. I'm talking about meeting summaries, deal prioritization, risk flagging. The real deal, man.
Sounds amazing.
And you can customize it to fit your specific needs. And the automation setup is so easy, and there's sales sequences.
Dude, leave me alone. Ah!
Come on, don't get stuck in the past. Move your deals forward with Monday CRM.
I don't know about you, but I'm mad. I am so tired of feeling stressed out and overwhelmed by things. I remember years ago when I was mad about finance, 2008, 2009, I was mad because I saw so many people being taken advantage by a small number of people. And what I decided as the solution was not to just be mad, but convert that into action. And I went and studied 50 of the smartest financial people in the world, Ray Dalio, Carl Icahn, Warren Buffett, and figured out what were they doing different than everyone else so that the average person could win financially. And I'm really proud. We wrote 3 books on that and built businesses that have given people tremendous economic freedom. When I tore my rotator cuffs, I'm fortunate enough to have a piece of several sports teams, and every surgeon said, no, you gotta have surgery. It's the only solution. Well, what about stem cells? They don't work. And so I dug into stem cells. I interviewed 150 of the best doctors in the world, regenerative doctors. I had a treatment, and in 3 days, instead of going through 6 months of healing, I was healed. I got invited, by the Pope to come and actually speak at this conference where it was all the best doctors in the world showing these breakthroughs that most people don't know about. So I brought that forward. Well, I'm mad now about AI because people are so afraid of AI, and you're not going to stop it, but people are afraid of losing their job. You're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to someone who understands how to use AI, someone who has the AI advantage.
That the most extraordinary technologies that I know of, those could be turned into a weapon system by all manner of sociopaths out there. Now, right now, some of the worst people on earth have those technologies and have been using them to traffic children, abduct people, make it look alien, mutilate people. And I just, that Peru case where faces were being ripped off.
The face dealers.
I know who was doing that. We know it was a human operation. It wasn't extraterrestrial. It was done using a very high-tech system to create terror and to give aliens a bad name. See, this is the kind of thing that you have to have a deep intelligence network to find out, what's behind this phenomenon. And, right? And that's what I try to do, is go down to the base, where is it really where the rubber meets the road, but you can't do it by just getting a superficial report. What's behind that phenomenon? Well, you find out what part of it is a man-made psychological warfare operation. For example, we can't get it from him, but Dr. Jacques Vallée admitted in his 1992 book that he has a CIA document from 1985 describing the CIA engaged in alien abductions using these high-tech ships that look like a UFO in Brazil and Argentina and I'm quoting, it says, for its psychological warfare value. Exactly the same.
There it is.
There it is. But there's a document from the 50s that's from CIA by one of the directors, Smith, CIA Director Smith, who said, that we're going to use the UFO subject for its, quote, psychological warfare value. So it's like, this is where people in the Gaia-sphere and people in your network need to wake up to how easily it is to manipulate and create war. The people who benefit and profit, not only financially, but in controlling the masses through war and conflict, they cannot get away with it on something this big, right? They've gotten away with it on other geopolitical problems, like the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, Vietnam, elsewhere, but we cannot let this happen on this issue, or it's really bad news for humanity. So that's, there's a right way and a truthful way for this to be disclosed, but I would say that the center of all the money and zeitgeist in disclosure world, the irony is I founded the whole global disclosure movement, and 90% of it's been hijacked into this threat narrative by people who have been paid to do that or told to do it. So this is where we have to be very careful. And I think that we're at the point now, an inflection point where this is all going to happen in the next year or two, almost certainly.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, maybe sooner. I know what's going. Yeah, and so it's moving very quickly at some very deep and also high levels. So,
can you share any more details? Or you can't say anything yet?
Oh yeah, but I have a whole weekend to share it with people in the Gaia-sphere. It would take much longer than we have here. But
fair enough.
But I'll just say that the people there are multiple categories of whistleblowers. Some are willing to come forward. Some want a subpoena to give them cover, and others want to stay in the shadows but are operating behind the scene to network and get things to happen for, let's call it the white hats, or as they call themselves. The first time they contacted me a few years ago, they said, we're the have-nots. And we're talking about the top JSOC, special forces, Pentagon, and other people in government. And they said, we call ourselves the have-nots because we know there's a deep black operation going on that even those of us with top secret clearance and read into black projects that are legal black. By the way, a legal black project, the president and the Gang of Eight, the oversight chairs in the House and the Senate know about. An illegal black project is one that is completely off book and is being run illegally and unconstitutionally. The entire UAP UFO subject since the late 50s, the late Eisenhower era, has been run as an illegal black project.
Dr. Greer,
Yep.
why are we shooting at UFOs? There was a video released in the UAP hearing that showed a Hellfire missile hit some sort of anomalous object. Honestly, it really bothered me. I think a lot of the public was flabbergasted. They couldn't believe that we would shoot at something potentially millions of years more advanced than us. Why are we shooting at UFOs?
Yeah, I had seen that before it was released, that video. And by the way, that object that was zipping through a theater of operations near Yemen about a year ago, in October 2024, that object almost certainly was not NHI, non-human ET. It was one of ours. But remember, the people running covert programs using human high-tech based on anti-gravity or reverse engineered ET tech, those guys are their own entity. They're their own universe. And the guys who are operating the drone, Hellfire missile, that fired at that, don't know anything about it. This is like when you had think about this. You had the Tic Tac, right? That whole famous case was on CNN everywhere. As soon as it came out, of course, I knew it was a Lockheed Martin Skunk Works device, man-made. And I alerted people that's what it was. And we have people who know for a fact in the system on our team. But of course, David Fravor, who was a pilot, the F-18 pilot, he told me, oh, it has to be alien. We don't have anything like that. I said, you're read in on even top secret operations that are in the conventional legal world. This is the exotic illegal world, and you would have no foundation. If the president isn't read in on this, why would a jet pilot, right?
Right.
So this gets into the conundrum. So, but it's dangerous. And here's why it's dangerous. Because you have perfectly honest, good men and women in the mainline military, Pentagon, or even CIA who know nothing about this issue. And so a tech like this shows up. Well, how are you going to react? Is it an enemy object? Did it come out of Iran? So they're going to fire on it. But this lack of information has also resulted in some disastrous situations where we have fired on peaceful ET craft. Now, there's another whole level of operations where we are deliberately targeting ET vehicles with advanced energy weapons, mainly scalar and electromagnetic pulse weapons that'll knock them out, because these ET craft are 100% electronic. There's no fuel payload. You hit them with a directional EMP weapon, it freezes all their systems and they drop like a rock right out to the ground or into the ocean. And I've known about those operations for many decades. And that's a very dangerous game being played. This is why in 1990, my core program, and people should get the app, CE5 Contact. Now, a lot of what we're going to be doing in the Gaia-sphere is I'm going to be unpacking why CE5 Contact, or Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, where people make contact with these civilizations, understanding the Vedas and Sanskrit. We'll get to this with the Bugosphere in a minute, and how communication happens through both a machine and consciousness, the interface between mind and machine. That's what I discovered when I had my onboard ET craft contact experience in 1973 when I was 18. And that's when I created this whole contact protocol, CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. And, in preparation, people could see the documentary called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. It's had hundreds of millions of people see it. And I think it'd be good for people who are coming to see that before the event. And also get the app. The CE5 Contact app is a whole training program in meditation, remote viewing, setting up those systems to be able to make contact, et cetera, and so on. But, and I'll talk about,
those are amazing resources. Question for clarity, though, because one thing in the space people talk about a lot is the craft conscious, or when you connect to a craft, or you're on a craft, people and whistleblowers talk about feeling like the craft is alive.
It is.
Are you saying more? Oh, it is. Okay. Are you saying it's a merging between the biological entity and the craft itself, or they're separate? They're both their own conscious beings of some sort.
Well, it's like the father of quantum mechanics said, the total number of minds in the universe is one. It's a singularity. That is the singularity. not what AI people talk about. And so what you're talking about here are technologies that are so advanced that, let's say, the commander or the person, piloting the ET craft, the consciousness of that person, even if it's an extraterrestrial person, is embedded within all the systems of that craft. And so the craft itself is conscious, but by an extension and interface with the awareness of the pilot or the commander or whoever. And so the really other part of this is that those craft also have a biological component. So even at Roswell, the one that didn't get blown to smithereens, some of the skin on the craft, a witness who was there before he died, I met with in 1995 at the first gathering of whistleblowers I organized back then, and 30 years ago. And he said, the skin on it was like if you took a time lapse, let's say you got cut and you did a time lapse of your skin healing.
Yeah.
It was doing that in front of their eyes, right?
Wow.
So the technology, it's called a bio-nano technology, where there's a biological technological interface, but at a nanomolecular level, but deeper than that, even at a consciousness level. So we're talking, this ain't your granddad's Oldsmobile, right? Or a Boeing, or a Boeing Dreamliner. So, and that's the other thing. In terms of making contact, there's a very clear distinction between a man-made UFO and how it can respond versus an interstellar one. And I'm going to go through this in the Gaia-sphere in November, so that people understand when they have an encounter or a sighting, how do you distinguish between, it's like, is it fake, meaning a man-made one, or an actual one? Most people don't know what that criteria is, and there is a criteria, but a lot of it has to do with the interactivity of that craft with your own thought and consciousness. Like you can think to it, if it's ET, and say, please move to the right, and it'll move to the right. That's
so fascinating.
Yeah, and that's called a CE5, Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind. So we do this as a formal program, and if you guys had an outdoor amphitheater, I'd take people out at night, or it'd be too cold in November. But
we're just talk about it. We can't pull it off. Believe me, we want to do it, but it's just too hard to pull off with everything.
I know. Oh, we do it all the time. Well, it's hard to find the right place, but we just had 300 people out in the desert in Arizona doing it. And
wow.
By the way, you're going to see some footage. We had over 3 separate nights, between 250 and 300 spheres and orbs that appeared, that materialized in clear air and disappeared. It's amazing what happened.
Oh,
it's phenomenal.
I can't wait till you release that. That's incredible.
Yeah. We'll show it to folks at the Gaia-sphere, because we have 5 high-resolution cameras on a platform getting 360 images, but it's a huge amount of data. And our team is all volunteer. We don't have the kind of wealth that Gaia has. So we have to just have volunteers go through that footage. But someday I hope we can get an AI program that can scan, all these terabytes of data from these videos from very high and pick up the anomalous material. But right now it's being done by hand, which is laborious. But we're going to put some of that together and show folks. And I witnessed all 3 of those night events, and 2 of them were very late. They were 3, 4 in the morning, when I always stay up till 4 or 5, because that's when everything great happens, between 2 and 5 a.m.
Yeah.
But oh yeah. Well, emergency doctor, we're used to being up all night, so.
That's true. It's just in your blood. Well, that's incredible. I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to reveal it. I can't wait for you to show it at Gaia-sphere. That's like what I live for, these moments, Dr. Greer. But I want to move on to something different, something that's one of the hottest topics going on right now in disclosure. And I know you're intimately involved. You and I were both down in Mexico City. You were down there shooting a documentary and investigating the Boogosphere. You just released kind of jaw-dropping information about the Boogosphere. I don't know how excited I should be. Basically, I'm going to summarize, and please take it from there and give the audience the details they need to know.
Sure.
Somehow the University of Georgia was able to carbon date resin from the Boogosphere, and it was dated at 12,560 years old.
The structure motorized pergola system is reinventing the way homeowners experience the outdoors. The most versatile, modern, useful outdoor patio space ever designed. It creates the perfect blend of sun, shade, and shelter at all times so you can still enjoy time outdoors, even if it rains, is windy, or the sun is out. With a structure motorized pergola, your family now enjoys quality time together in the fresh air, sun, and perfect amount of shade. See what Victoria has to say.
So we love our structured patio cover because it feels very much like an extension to our home. It doesn't feel like a patio. It feels like a living room, which is exactly what we wanted. We spend a lot of time out here as a family. My daughter wants to watch TV out here every single day. We're barbecuing out here. I actually work from home a lot, and so I spend a lot of time out here working, but it just feels like our house just got bigger because now we have this extended space. We are extremely satisfied with the quality, the design. We get compliments on it. Every time anyone walks back here, they're like, whoa, because it feels almost like we're in a commercial space. In terms of the quality elements of the louvered patio cover, I think that we really appreciate are just things like having electric wired through. We have a ceiling fan, we have a gas heater, we have lighting. It really feels like a room. We call this our living room, our outdoor living room. It's not just a cover.
How excited should I be? Where is the threshold for when we can say an object is created by non-human intelligence?
Mhm. Well, I think on the Boogosphere, we're pretty much there. There are a number of data points.
Really?
One is when we were there, I was with some scientists taking around the equator of the Boogosphere. There are those little holes,
Yep.
31 tiny, 4 millimeter, tiny. Well, what I realized, and that no one had thought about this, is that I looked at the material in there. I said, you can't carbon date metal, but you can carbon date organic material. Like even if it was a resin, petroleum based or some, like whatnot, because there's carbon atoms in it. And, so I said, well, what if we could get that material out? Because there was one of those holes where they had already damaged the resin. I said, let's carefully pull it out and get it carbon dated. And then at the same time, take some metal shavings from once the resin was out. It's kind of like a surgical procedure. And we had some very fine instruments and got the metal shavings. Had to get at least a gram of it. So we could then do metallurgical tests, one of which we don't have these back yet. Those are pending. I think by the time I'm with you guys in November, we'll have these results, which could be quite interesting.
Oh, that is so fascinating.
And what those will tell us, we hope, one of the tests we're doing is a gamma ray emission test from the metal, which could possibly tell us whether the metal originated from the Earth's crust or outer space. And that would be very interesting. But we're also going to try to put together what the alloy is. We know there's aluminum and some others, but we're doing a very high-tech, very expensive. This is costing us like $50,000. Thank you for your tuition, folks. This is where it's going. I don't get the money, and I don't need the money, be blunt about it. So basically, those tests may be a further elaboration. But the fact that resin material was 12,500 years old would indicate, unless it was something that was put in those holes that was older than the manufacturer of the sphere. See, so this is where you get into the fine nuance. I'm a scientist, so I get into the nuance of it. But assuming that resin, which looked very old, was the same age as the sphere itself, we're talking, 1,200, 500 years ago in that part of South America, some high-tech electrogravitic things flying around. And it's an anti-gravity free energy device because there's no fuel payload and there's no nuclear radioactivity. There's electromagnetic fields and radiation coming from it, but none of the ionizing radiation that you get from energy from a small nuclear reactor, because that would be a Geiger counter, go off the scale. So we know it's not nuclear. We know it's not oil, gas, coal, jet, and it was flying around and spinning. So it's an extraordinary development. And now that you say, well, it's 12,500 years old, perhaps it's older. The metal, the sphere itself, perhaps that resin was replaced. So maybe it dates back even older. But you cannot, unfortunately, unless you got on the inside and saw if there was other material that was like the resin that had carbon in it. The best dating we're going to get right now without getting all the way into the center of the sphere. And I've seen the CAT scans of the interior, and I have a plan of how to get in there without damaging the sphere or cracking it open. But I won't bore you.
Yeah, that's everyone's big criticism. Like, why don't you just break it open and tell the world?
No, because no, that's stupid. I know offense, whoever said that is idiotic. You don't take something and damage it, because even though it isn't flying now, because it hit that high voltage line and probably shorted out a lot of its circuitry. If you were to do that, you could irreparably damage what part of it is still functioning. So, you want to be careful with this. You want to do it as non-invasively, to use a medical term, as possible. So one of the things I've suggested is that there are two of those little holes around the equator that communicate all the way through the thickness of the metal, where if you took the resin out, you could go all the way through, make the hole a little bigger, and get a fiber optic scope in there, like you use for medicine or robotic surgery in medicine, and have a camera externally to put it on a big screen. And we might see some structures in there that then subsequently we could get more data on, or even get another carbon-14 test from inside the sphere, as opposed to these little tiny holes on the outside. So, I mean, I think there's a lot more to be done. Jaime Maussan has that object, not me, but I'm advising him on what their team could do, the next step of tests that I think they ought to be doing scientifically.
But you're already there. You're saying you're already at a point where you think it's most likely non-human intelligence created, or do you need more data at this point? No, you're saying we're already kind of there. More data.
Well, it's either non-human created, or it was a very advanced human-based civilization that had contact with ETs. Now remember,
a long time ago. Okay.
Yeah. So let me tell your listeners a little interesting debriefing I had near Huntsville, Alabama, where the Marshall Space Flight Center is, and the Redstone Arsenal. There's a scientist there I know. About maybe 10, 15 years ago, I was down there in his skiff, secure compartment information facility. It's a secure, electronically sealed facility. And this guy worked for the CIA, but via a contractor. And periodically, things would be brought to him, ancient, like old, a piece of technology, but that was hundreds of thousands of years old. And he says some of them were from Earth-based civilizations that we have virtually no record of, and some were extraterrestrial civilizations. So now you get into, with the Boogosphere, it's old. It's definitely not of a modern make and era. The symbols on it, we've just found out, are a type of Proto-Sanskrit. You may have heard this or not. This is a big breaking story in the last few days.
No, I haven't.
Oh,
that's
boy.
Incredible.
Well, this is why everyone stop and listen. At the Gaiosphere, I'm going to go a deep dive into Sanskrit, the Vedas, the science of consciousness, and that interface with interstellar technologies and contact. There is an interface there, and I know it. I've known it since I was 18, and we're going to talk about it. The Boogosphere seems to have two different linguistic specialists in the past week in Europe have found that those symbols are from a Proto-Sanskrit, an earlier than modern-day Sanskrit language, but related to Sanskrit. And I think it's very likely that the science of consciousness in Vedas and Sanskrit and Proto-Sanskrit came from another star system. I've always felt that was the case. It's why I became a meditation teacher after I had my onboard and became, I learned the Vedas.
Very familiar,
and learned Sanskrit, and I still teach people Sanskrit mantras and chanting and all that. But I think that there is a nexus where this very high-tech aspect of it comes together with ancient Sanskrit and ancient science of consciousness, because the Vedas are the best repository of that knowledge that we have. And, it precedes Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism. A lot of people think that the Vedas are, same as Hinduism and Buddha. I said, no, those were way later, way, way, way later. So Sanskrit and the Vedas or a body of knowledge that predate any organized religion on the planet. Another fact, no, and I'm going to do a Sanskrit puja and meditation for everyone at the biosphere. And then I'm going to connect these dots that we're learning about the Boogosphere at the Gaiosphere. Oh, that's fun. Anyway, but I will go through this for people. It'll be a lot. I'm afraid it'll be a lot for folks to take in 2 days, but we're also going to have a little fundraiser for Disclosure that Friday night in Boulder. People can come. You can find out about it at drstevengreer.com, because here's one of the things we're having the fun. We're funding all this research, but all these whistleblowers that come to Washington, we pay for their airfare, hotel, security, everything. So there's no one picking up that tab. Congress doesn't pay for it. We pay for it.
Do you sleep at all?
EVE Online is a vast universe, alive with the unrelenting activity and combined history of its players. Pursuing lives of adventure, warfare, and prosperity, they share this existence in the biggest single shard, free-to-play MMO of all time. Set 21,000 years in the future, EVE takes place in a distant cluster of over 7,000 star systems known as New Eden. It is a rich and diverse universe, featuring densely populated havens of relative safety, governed by four great empires.
I put up
hostile systems where player alliances make the rules. Even regions of anomalous and unexplored space that hold their own secrets.
So hopefully somebody calls in.
You play as a Capsuleer, a revered breed of highly trained pilot, having achieved immortality through the use of cloning technology. You navigate the universe encased in an armored capsule deep within your ship, where you have complete neural control and function as one. There are hundreds of ships to fly in EVE. Everything from small, nimble craft and versatile mid-range vessels to formidable warships and colossal freighters. Each has advantages and suited roles, but all are completely customizable as you decide how to equip and arm them. What you do in New Eden is entirely up to you. EVE's immense sandbox gives you the opportunity to choose between multiple professions and activities. The key to this unique customization of your playstyle is skill training. This is a passive process, and it continues whether you are in or out of game. As a new player, you can focus on one specific area in order to quickly reach the same level of specialization as a veteran. So be adventurous and explore new avenues of development for your character, as you can always change role and reinvent yourself if desired. If you want to fight, combat in EVE can involve solo missions against non-player adversaries, or small group skirmishes, while for some, it can even be the thrill of fleeting up with thousands of fellow pilots and battling over disputed territory. If you want to explore, then the discovery of uncharted space and ancient regions that promise riches, danger, and adventure await you. You can also engage in the business of prosperity, be it industry, mining, or even interstellar piracy. The beauty of life in New Eden is that all of these activities, and many more, can be done alone or with others. A unique in-game market, unprecedented in scale and degree of player control, is the beating heart of New Eden. Players are responsible for the manufacture of almost everything you can buy or sell. The gathering and refinement of resources, the building of ships, equipment, and even some space stations. EVE's players are core to how the universe is filled and how the economy thrives. Players in EVE can band together to form corporations where they can enrich their experience, learn new elements of gameplay, and share their wealth and gold.
I mean, Dr. Garrett, just personally, thank you for everything you've done over the years. I've been following you since 2001. I don't think I caught the press conference live, but after that, you changed my whole perspective on the whole threat-based narrative of ETs and abduction and all that. So I appreciate the work you're doing.
I personally interviewed the gentleman who picked it up after it landed, and the subsequent engineer that had it for about 30 days there in Cali.
Jose and David, I think are their names. Jose
Yeah,
and David.
and I spent a fair amount of time with them. And what's interesting is that, you know, when they first picked it up, it weighed about 2 kilograms. Now it's 10 kilograms.
Right.
And I was talking to the scientists that work with Jaime Maussan, and they couldn't make it. I said, no, this is the essence of what's called mass cancellation. So electrogravitic and ET propulsion systems, both the man-made ones, when something is moving in this electromagnetic anti-gravity bubble, the mass of the object itself, like here's this crystal, if it weighs however many ounces, it can be lighter than a feather, because the actual, let's call it the atomic weight, the real mass of the object is getting, in Earth gravity, reduced almost to zero, because of the electromagnetic and anti-gravitational field or gravitic field. And I'm not going to get into the physics of it. We understand the physics of it. But when I heard that about the Boogosphere, I said, now we have something very significant, because it meant that it wasn't just having a spinning effect. It actually was becoming more and more massless. Just so you know, mass is what something weighs even out in space. Weight is what it weighs in one gravitational force of the Earth. I know it's a physics thing, but, you know, so go kill me. I'm a scientist. So anyway, but that's important to realize. So when this thing went from 2 kilograms, and when I held it and picked it up, it was 10, very heavy. That's 22 pounds, right? Over 22 pounds. Now we're finding that this is the case with similar objects, and people, they're mystified by it, but it's because they're not understanding how that technology, the electromagnetic field and anti-gravity technology, literally reduces the mass of something. Now, if it becomes totally massless, it disappears in thin air. That's why they disappear. So if you take that on a spectrum, it can be reduced, and it gets to zero. It vanishes in thin air in front of you. And that,
where's it go?
It goes, well, we would say it goes transdimensional at that point. It can be, and we're going to get into this. It goes into an area that's between 3-dimensional space-time and other dimensions. So, for example, let's make it very human. You have your body of light, like you have a lucid flying dream or an out-of-body experience. That's a real thing. Now, what is that? There's a science to that, and it's called the astral body. So an ET vehicle can be shifted to where it goes out of 3D into a dimension that is finer, that is closely approximates what we would call the astral, or the body of light, that subtle energy. And it's not going to be visible with the naked eye usually, but sometimes even in that state, it'll be in this dimension a little bit, where you'll just see almost like a light or an
Like it
orb.
can peer through and kind of track where it is to see the 3D reality. Okay.
Yes, yes. Or all you see with the naked eye might be a sphere or an orb. You know, like in that ET that came in our circle up in Arizona. No, the healer, and the man had lost his hearing.
Oh, right. I remember
And
that, yeah.
well, all you saw with the naked eye was a teardrop-shaped red orb, like a teardrop. But with the camera, luckily, there was an instant where eyes didn't pick it up, where the ET fully materialized, standing beside this man. And we have that picture. I'm going to show it the Gaiosphere and go through how that happened. But imagine an entire spacecraft can do that, right? So you may see something that's an orb. If it were to come into full 3D, it could be a 300-foot diameter spacecraft. So this gets into everyone wanting to do CE5 contact needs to understand this and the science behind it, although it gets a bit esoteric, I guess. But I try.
Our audience can take it. They can take it.
Yeah.
Our audience and our audience can take it.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, what I want to do is unpack that for people, because it becomes important when you're out doing CE5 under the stars, you know, not only to be able to distinguish between a man-made and a non-man-made object, but also if it's an ET object, all the different thousands of ways it can appear. And you're just picking up on the ephemeral, you know, the sort of the superficial part of it. Behind it, if you understand the science of this, you're going to realize there's more there than meets our physical eyes. But this then becomes something where very accurate remote viewing capability and consciousness becomes valuable, because then you just see an indicator in this dimension, but on channel 1, which is your conscious mind, you can see the whole thing. So that's what we do.
Would you be happy if you stayed where you are in life and job forever? If the answer is yes, then this video is not for you. But if you want to finally achieve the time, location, and financial freedom you know you deserve, then this new career may be the answer to all your prayers. Because what I'm about to reveal to you is unlike anything you've ever seen before. It pays extremely well, it's flexible with hours and location, you don't need a degree, and here's the craziest part, you can earn while you learn and still have enough time to juggle your current job, responsibilities, and even family. So here's what I'm talking about. I'm David Bragg, founder of Front End Simplified. We help people like you land tech jobs guaranteed without needing a degree or previous experience. The tech industry is already one of the biggest ones in the world, yet it's still expanding by 20% year over year. And global companies with the budget to pay high salaries are desperate right now to find talent. Why, you may ask? The reason is simple. With more and more apps being developed and everything going online, these companies need people to build and support their new features and softwares. And the problem? There's just not enough people out there to pull from. Probably because they think coding is too hard, they think it takes too long to learn, or maybe they don't even know this career exists. That's why this is such an amazing opportunity. Front-end development is the easiest part of coding to learn, yet the average salary is $113,571 per year, and that does not include bonuses. And because of this difference in supply and demand, it's also the easiest field in tech to break into. After all, you don't need previous experience or a college degree to get hired, and I know this because I went from making $17 an hour at a grocery store and being addicted to video games to landing a $160K front-end developer job at Canva without a degree. Or because I took action on
Wow, that's so fascinating. I can't wait for you to break that down further on the 8th and 9th coming up, folks. Okay, I have a question. I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned that the Jersey drone wave was a psychological operation. Right now, I'm sure you're aware, in Denmark, across large parts of Europe, very similar things are happening. Airports are being shut down, high strangeness, just like was reported in Jersey. Is this the same thing? Is this a psychological operation?
Yeah, it's probably related to it, but it may have some, excuse me.
Okay.
I think it may have something to do with the Ukraine-Russian war. So there could be some operations trying to sort of mix up the picture over there, but it could be the same sort of operations. So remember, the organization keeping all this secret works globally. I have some special forces guys that have confirmed that these man-made UFOs, triangular ones, have been found operating in Russia. There was one that was downed in northern Iran that had to be blown up. Um, I mean, I can't, I can give you the information. I can't tell you who, these kind of people on my team, right? But so this is a global. I know Americans are very narcissistic and look at it, the whole world is just the 4.5% of the population on Earth. No, it's a big world out there, and it's a bigger universe. So the Disclosure Project has to think globally and universally. So when we gather this sort of information, begin to realize, well, whatever kind of nonsense and deceptive operations have been happening here, there's no reason why they wouldn't be happening in Russia, Europe, China, other places, South America. Like the person who went down there with one of these high techs and ripped off faces, making it look like scary aliens were doing this. So we know how that's done and why they're doing it. And this new drone event, now some of that could well be some operations that are testing European and American response to incursions like that. But I think that may have also been related to the New Jersey, because it isn't just UAP related. It's a geopolitical aspect of this that involves this covert group that can do all manner of things behind the scenes to manipulate governments and world leaders and whatnot who are not read in. See, this is the danger of this level of secrecy. If you have people in national military command authorities here and abroad, and I'm working with senior people in the United Kingdom, it's the same problem. I'm going to Canada tomorrow. It's the same problem in Canada. And that is, when that happens, what you realize is that those leaders are playing with only, if 52 cards in a deck, they're only playing with 2 cards or 4 cards. And this covert group has all 52. And so it leaves them at an enormous strategic disadvantage. And this is why I said earlier, knowledge is power. And we're trying to get this level of information and knowledge to the right people, because ultimately, whether you're David Fravor flying an F-18 Hornet chasing the Tic Tac or other things, you need to know the whole landscape of what's going on here. Otherwise, you're going to be making some very bad and dangerous decisions, because you're going to be manipulated by not having enough knowledge. People have got to understand this. I think we're at childhood's end here, where regardless, again, we're nonpartisan. Whoever's at the right, I'm looking at the White House and the Washington Monument right here and the Capitol, whoever's in those buildings, and the same thing at 10 Downing Street or in Canada, they've got to understand this, because in not knowing a granular, detailed level of this leaves you vulnerable to being tricked and making terrible decisions. And that is how you end up in a war, or how you end up in a catastrophe that would greatly benefit people who like to divide people and keep endless war going. Our job is to try to bring in an era of what I call universal peace, where we transition from the current state to not only a stable world that's peaceful, but an interplanetary situation that's peaceful. Now, what these guys eventually want to do is trade the geopolitical wars, make a peaceful world united in an interplanetary conflict. That's been their 70-year plan. And that's 99% of ufology. Unwittingly, usually, are putting out disinformation and false cases they think are real, that convince people of the alien threat that Werner von Braun warned us about. So I know this kind of people's brains begin to ache at this point, but you got to understand, the whole psychological warfare nexus around this that evolved from the 40s and 50s onward. And I have to say, they're very, very good at what they do, which is quite evil. They're good at being evil, But we have to be good at I always say they own this darkness. We got to own the light. We got to own the truth. We got to own and also we need to articulate, and this is the punchline, we have to articulate a path forward where all this comes out, the safe technologies to disclose are put into action very quickly, and we create a world where we actually are making peaceful, open contact with these other civilizations, because they want that if we would do it in a way that wasn't based on a military response. And think about this. Let's step into the shoes of a being from another star system. And in 100 years, they've seen our environment collapse, thermonuclear weapons proliferate, all the wars that we've had in the last 100 years, their own technologies, ET technologies, being reverse engineered and then deployed against them to shoot them down, and those same technologies being used to stage and hoax events portraying the ETs as these monsters from outer space, like a Hollywood movie. So they're watching this, and where do we end up? Well, it's like that old Chinese proverb, unless we change directions, we're likely to end up where we're headed. So we got to change course, and we got to do it quickly. So we need a course correction. Then the universe and all these civilizations out there will open their arms to us, but we have to approach them in an enlightened, peaceful way, not down the barrel of a directional energy weapon. And right now, except for the CE5 community, going and saying, we're here to make peaceful contact. That's why I'm calling this whole program at Gaia's Ambassadors to the Universe. We want to create millions of ambassadors who are knowledgeable and aren't going to be tricked by the deceptions, who can make contact with these civilizations. Because here's something else that might happen. Depending on how this all plays out, who knows? If things go sideways, there will be a massive ET assistance, right? That assistance is going to need points of contact. Guess who that's going to be? You and me and the people in the Gaia sphere. Think about it. That's been my plan for 35 years. We're backstopping, okay, because the governments may be completely, the buffoonery I see in government, I don't care, left, right, center, and the cluelessness, there's a clock ticking. And so at some point, that clock, we run the clock out. And we're going to need people who are enlightened, peaceful, who actually know how to discern a staged fake ET thing from a real one, but who will be the points of contact to those civilizations. Who else is going to do it? Your police chief, your mayor, your governor? They don't know anything about this subject.
Right.
So this is why a whole, large group of people who understand the science of consciousness, contact, CE5 contact, that's really important. It's strategically very important. And I think it's important for the future of humanity and the Earth.
I love that. So,
all right, sales team, eating lunch. Let's go.
Greg, why are you eating so fast?
No time. Got sales calls.
I think we're kind of at the end here, but
okay.
I want to follow up with one quick question. So, what does that look like? So, if the ETs have to take over disclosure, what does that look like? Is that open contact with select groups? Is that appearing over major cities? How would they go about that specifically?
No, the protocol is, I know what the protocol is, only in a worst case scenario. In other words, if we go to a full geophysical catastrophe or a major thermonuclear launch situation, what have you, then and only then. But the only other situation where there would be that level of it happening overtly, because they want us to learn, they want us to evolve, not be conquered. They're way wiser than we are. Like, we go into Afghanistan thinking we're going to turn it into a Jeffersonian democracy, and 20 years later and trillions of dollars later, it's right back to having a theocracy of the Taliban, right? So they know that external forcing something from one outside culture to another doesn't work. So they're only going to have to intervene in a worst case, but I mean go read my paper I wrote in 1991 called The Comprehensive Assessment of the UFO ETI Extraterrestrial Intelligence Subject. That went all through the aerospace industries and CIA, unbeknownst to me, in the early days of the internet. And it's a very accurate assessment. And of course, it's in my first book, um, Extraterrestrial Contact, the Evidence and Implications, but which was done in the 90s. But I think what people want to realize is that they don't want to do that unless they have to. The other problem, and this is a problem that's evolved since I got on the stage doing this, is the technology curve covertly, let's say 40s, 50s, it was like going up a little bit. Then they hit mid 50s. It went like, and now it's vertical, nonlinear. So the reverse engineering technologies that are in these covert programs, you know, when Ben Rich, the week he died, he told a friend of mine, James Goodall, the aerospace historian, that anything you can imagine, what you've seen on Star Trek, Star Wars, we've already done at the Lockheed Skunk Works. It's not at Area 51. It's out at the Lockheed underground facilities. I know where they are. I've been flown right over them in a classified helicopter. I'll tell everyone, I'll show you the pictures of it. You want to see the pictures of it?
Yes.
I'll put a pin on a map and show you where it is. That's what I'm handing over to law enforcement into the White House. So then I almost got killed, you know, 3 weeks later, as you know. But
right, yeah, I remember that.
You know, severely injured. But so what? You know, if I die, I die. You know, I'm fatalistic about it. But the fact is, I don't have any fear about it. You know, make my day and kill me. I died when I was 17. I'm not afraid of death. So beautiful on the other side. But yeah, that's a spirit warrior, not afraid of death. But anyway, so I tell people, look, we now have technologies that are reaching parity with ET systems, but we're using the worst people in the world have them, and they're using them aggressively against the ETs. So there is a universal right to self-defense. And this, 2 years ago at the National Press Club, that's when I said there's a red line out there in the cosmos, and we're pushing through that red line. And it's very dangerous. And this is why it's going to take a stand-down order by the president and Congress, as well as a strike team that goes and stand down those systems. So I will talk very openly at the Guys here about what that looks like without giving any particulars, because I'm advising those people. I'm advising the people who would have to be in position to stand down those illegally run systems that are a threat to the Earth and humanity, and is a very serious program that we're doing. So, you know, you'll get a little peek behind that curtain, but I can't do a lot of tactical or other information. I have to choose my words very carefully because of what I'm doing, to be honest with you. Fair. You know the irony of my life right now? I founded the Disclosure Project, and yet I'm holding the biggest secrets in the history of the UFOs subject. And I can't disclose them, or it would blow up the whole strategy. So it's a weird conundrum I'm in, right?
Wow. Well, I think I'm going to stop you right there, Dr. Greer. That was incredible. I was already excited for the event, and I just know that if that didn't get you excited, I don't know what will, people. That was amazing. So again,
it'll be fun.
It's going to be awesome. I went to the last one, and it was incredible. So November 8th and 9th is the Guysphere event. It's called UAP Disclosure and CE5 ET Contact with Dr. Stephen Greer. Today is the last day. You can get the early bird special. Please check out the link in the description below. Dr. Greer, it's always a pleasure. I could talk to you all day, but I know your time is precious. So I'll see you in a couple months.
Great. Good seeing you again. Thank you.
If you got hit, even as a passenger or in an Uber, you would need to try this.
Were you recently injured in a car accident? Look at this check for $160,000. If you're looking to get money you're owed for an injury, I want you to imagine you and your family getting that money, because I know a way that you can. Now, before you think I'm crazy, I want to show you how you can get that money you're owed in the next 30 days. Now, if you've thought about hiring an attorney before, but you didn't because you were unsure or you had reservations, it's not your fault. You were probably given no guidance and couldn't get a straight answer out of anyone about how much money you could actually make. I want you to capitalize on a limited opportunity that can have you cashing out a massive check in the next 30 days. This opportunity won't last long, and it's perfect for anyone who's been in a car accident in the last 2 years. Do you still think it's impossible? I'm willing to guarantee that by clicking on the link below and filling out the 15-second quiz, you will get an instant quote on how much your case is worth. And me and my team will help you get that money you deserve in as little as the next 30 days. Still think it's too good to be true? Let me tell you about our client, Steven. Now, when Steven first came to us, he was really unsure if his case was going to be worth anything. He was facing a lot of uncertainties in his life, and he didn't know if he was going to get paid for his injury at all. Turns out, after filing a claim with us, he was able to take home over $100,000 in settlement from an accident that was over a year ago. It's possible. No matter what you thought in the past, you can get the money you were owed and probably a lot more than what you were expecting. Simply click the button below and answer the questions about your case, and you'll get an instant quote about what your case is.
This is Hard Off, Japan's biggest thrift store chain specializing in electronics like camera gear, musical instruments, and most importantly, video games and consoles. This summer, I rented a car and drove 500 miles across Japan, visiting as many Hard Offs as I could to search for the best deals in the country. Now, obviously, I'm a big Pokemon guy, so the main things that I'm looking for on this trip are mostly older Pokemon games and a Game Boy Advance. A few years ago in Japan, I bought this Game Boy Color so I can play Gen 1 and Gen 2 games, but I'm looking for a Game Boy Advance so I can play Gen 3 games. Of course, I'm also half Filipino, so I'm not opposed to a good deal. So if anything else interesting comes up, we'll see what happens. I started off the adventure by heading west from Tokyo to what would ultimately be the biggest Hard Off of the entire trip. This shop is located in Hachioji, and it set the bar very high. I went straight to the consoles to see what the prices were like. Since this was the first Hard Off I visited, I kind of used it to set the baseline for what to expect. I assumed, since we were still fairly close to Tokyo, prices on Game Boys would probably get cheaper as we went further into the countryside. That assumption may have been a mistake. There was a stack of GBA SPs priced at 8,800 yen, or about $60 US. Below that, a whole shelf of Game Boy Colors ranging from $33 up to $375 for this Pokemon Center Gold and Silver Special Edition. There was a huge selection of Famicom games, which honestly I had no intention of buying, but I love that the cartridges are all different colors. They had Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire for $9 each, Gold version for $2.50, Yellow for $4, and Crystal for $9, Soul Silver in box for $30, Platinum for $16, and one of my all-time favorites, Final Fantasy Tactics A2 for $13. They had complete Nintendo 64s for $50, and a whole wall of old computers that I know nothing about. They even had this Frankenstein of a bootleg console and copyright infringement nightmare.
You can choose to raid the caravan, or you can choose to guard it. This is a game where slaying monsters are not the only way to grow stronger. Heck, it's not even the main way. Discover relics in the ruins. Loot treasures from the bandit camps. Learn skills by finishing quests. Profit from trading routes. Build your own territory. Choose your own way to play, just because you can.
Here's how savvy investors are getting the government to send them tax checks.
This is a hidden gem that people don't know about.
If you're like me, I worked for 40 years, I'm still working. More important to work on the right things that will lead to passive income.
There's one income investment that pays better than real estate, it's easier to buy than stocks, and your returns are actually secured by law. Have you heard of income tax? Duh, right? I mean, we all have to pay it. But did you know there's a secret government-secured cash flow investment where people are getting checks in the mail, earning a percentage of the government's annual tax revenue? That's like $2.1 trillion with a T right now every year. So what do the returns on investments like this look like? Well, your typical dividend stock pays like 2, maybe 4% a year. It's pathetic. Real estate, you're lucky to make maybe 10%, and that's after you pay mortgages and property taxes, a management company. That is, of course, even if you're rich enough to get into real estate. But with this tax-secured investment, which, by the way, has been off limits to everyday people like us for like at least the last 85 years.
Now the real fun happens in the junk section. You'll find one in every hard-off, and it features broken or untested items. Sometimes the problem is as simple as the device not being charged when it was brought in, and you can find some really incredible deals if you're willing to dig through the bins. The junk section here had a bunch of Game Boys with GBAs as cheap as $33. The tags on each item tells you what's wrong with them. Some of them won't load games, some have damaged screens, but a lot of the issues are pretty easy repairs if you know what you're doing. The music section here was just as wild as the game section. I'm still wondering how 5 used sitars and a dozen mandolins all ended up in the same secondhand shop. They even had toilets up here. As you'd expect, the used camera section was just as well stocked with film and digital gear spanning across decades. From Hard Off, I ventured into the sister store Hobby Off, which specializes in toys, trading cards, and collectibles. I'm no plushie connoisseur, but I'm sure you could find some rare exclusives hiding among the fluff. There were walls and walls of Pokemon cards, and even some representation for my favorite TCG, Magic the Gathering. Among all the toys, I managed to find some pretty strange Pokemon products, which I'll be showcasing in another video soon. After spending the night at the world's oldest hotel, I headed to the second hard off of the trip, this time in a city called Kai in the Yamanashi Prefecture. The very first case I looked in had a couple DSIs for just $8, which gave me hope for finding a cheap Game Boy Advance. The Game Boy junk bin was filled with Tamagotchi and Yu-Gi-Oh games that I would soon discover to be a plague on Japan's hard-offs. In the DS junk bin, I found a copy of a kanji training game that I was looking for. I almost bought this game for $50 in the US before coming on this trip. Good thing I waited because I just found it for 80 cents. The N64 junk bin had a bunch of copies of Pokemon Stadium for the same price, and functional or not, a box full of PlayStations for $2 each is just insane. They had N64s and GameCubes for $45, but the bargain stopped there. Game Boys of all generations were priced at nearly $100 each. I found a boxed original Pokemon pinball for $11. I already have a copy from my last trip to Japan, but I'm still on the hunt for the Game Boy Advance version. There were also boxed Gen 1 Pokemon games for $30 each, and this one, which was just missing the manual, was priced at $15. I ended up buying 2 kanji training games and taking a chance on one of the $8 DSIs from the junk section. Deeper into the mountains, and the next stop was here in the city of Matsumoto in Nagano Prefecture. Unfortunately, this shop had no handheld consoles. They even had a sign asking people to please sell theirs. The game section was pretty sparse too. Just a couple copies of Pokemon Emerald for $26 each. I had a quick look through the junk bins and found a charger for my new DSi for $2. And in case you needed more evidence that the Wii U was a failure, here are 2 boxes full of them for $8 each. The off-house section of the shop had a bunch of camping gear, and in the Hobby Off, I found this incredible treasure, a Pokemon Gachapon machine that I may or may not have brought home with me. I plugged in my junk DSi at the hotel and turned it on, and it was 100% functional. The tag at the shop said the buttons didn't work, but here's what I think happened. During the initial setup, you have to use the touchscreen. Once you get past that, you can use the buttons. Whoever tested it probably turned it on, couldn't use the buttons right away, and then labeled it junk. They go through so much stuff that some of it just probably doesn't get tested thoroughly and ends up way underpriced. The kanji game I bought, however, ended up being a little too difficult for me. It just required a much higher base level of knowledge than I have, so I have to keep looking for a more basic level game. Another day, another hard off, this time in Kanazawa. The junk case was filled with Nintendo handhelds, but unfortunately, the one that was missing was the one that I was looking for, the Game Boy Advance. This place was absolutely stacked with consoles. There was even an entire junk bin full of original DS's. There was a pretty hefty game section to go along with the consoles. Dragon Quest V and Super Mario Kart at junk prices, Mario Party 2 for $2, Animal Crossing New Leaf $4, Pokemon Black $9, Alpha Sapphire $13, Gold and Silver for $2 each, and then, perhaps the most interesting find of the entire trip. At first, I couldn't understand why an old CRT TV would cost $500, but then I realized, this is a TV with a Super Famicom built in. It's literally a Super Nintendo TV. Put the game straight in. Put the controller straight in. I didn't buy it because how the heck would I get that home, but it turns out these things sell for upwards of $1,000 on eBay. So if anyone's in Kanazawa and wants to make a few $100, go check if it's still there. Next up, we're in the city of Sabai. Unfortunately, I didn't spend much time here because their handheld section was slim and expensive. They did have a few cool uncommon finds like the Watermelon N64 and this Pikachu controller, but ultimately the best thing about this hard off was the sunset. This shop in Nagahama was pretty small, but that should never deter you from checking out a hard off. Size doesn't matter, it's what's on the inside that counts. I don't know, pick a joke. They had a huge stock of Gen 3 Pokemon games and a couple Game Boy players. These were only $45, including the startup disc. They normally go for over $150 on eBay. Of course, the disc is region locked, so you'd need a Japanese GameCube, but we've already seen them as cheap as $30 on this trip. Overall, a great deal, and I regret not picking one up, but there's always next time. I ended up buying both Ruby and Sapphire here for just $6 each. A short drive along Lake Biwa and a quick stop at Hikone Castle, and we're at the next hard off in the city of Ritto. As always, I headed straight for the handheld case. There was an Animal Crossing Special Edition new 2DS LL for $260, among other recent and expensive Nintendo consoles. The case had some other cool finds like a boxed Pocket Pikachu and this SNES-shaped Game Boy Player controller priced at $110, which is surprisingly $30 cheaper than it sells on eBay. It had been days since I'd seen a Game Boy Advance, but $45 was still a bit steep compared to that first hard off back in Hachioji. The Atomic Purple Game Boy Pocket for $30 was pretty cool, and there was even an Atomic Purple Game Boy camera to match. Apparently, this game was released in Japan, Europe, and Australia, but as an American, this was my first time ever seeing it. Is this a Pokemon typing game with a DS keyboard? Pokemon Typing DS. Pokemon Typing DS. At this point in my trip, I met up with a bunch of friends in Osaka for Pokemon Go Fest, and I wasted no time introducing them to the magic of hard off. The first hard off we visited together was in Nagaoka-kyo, but it turns out all the games were at the hobby off next door.
Monster Math presents Addition Below 10. Okay class, let's begin. What is 5 plus 3? We can solve the problem by counting on. We start with the bigger number, 5. And then we count on. 5, 6, 7, 8. Well done. Now try this one. What is 4 plus 6? Again, we start with the bigger number.
They had some cool limited edition handhelds and boxed Pokemon games from Gen 1 through
This is True West. It's a company town.
It is.
It's one of the last few. The mine owns everything. Didn't expect this in Baghdad, Arizona.
Living out here is unique.
Skull Valley.
My husband rides his horse down from the ranch, ties it up, and comes in for a meal.
This is a different Arizona, that's for sure. You're gonna find your fortune, and there's a whole lot of risk that it's not gonna work.
We're going to the other side of town.
Hey! So people care here.
People care deeply here.
3-bed, 2-bath, $375 a month. You do your time in the mine, but when you retire, you're gonna have to leave. Yeah. If you act up in this town criminally, you're just getting booted out. I guess for the right person, this is a dream come true. Sit back and enjoy the open road experience. That's what the American West is so good for. Good morning, guys. From a remote corner of Arizona, we have a very interesting road trip ahead of us today. Check this out, going through the towns of Skull Valley and Baghdad. Baghdad, Arizona, not Baghdad, Iraq. And Baghdad is one of the remaining company towns left in the United States, meaning the mine owns everything, all the real estate. Everyone who lives there has something to do with the mine. And there's really not much about it online other than it's far removed and looks pretty much self-contained. So we'll get out there today, stop in the little towns, talk to the locals, get a better understanding of what this beautiful part of the country is like. Let's do this. This gets really cool here. 800 people live here in Skull Valley, and I believe it's mostly ranching. See these massive cottonwoods, meaning there's some water coming through. So we have a cafe there, / store. You saw coming in here how expansive the landscapes are. This is True West. Skull Valley Fire Department, the post office here. Let's see what we can get into. I think that might be it. But I saw some back roads, we'll check those out. But here we go, you can just see a bunch of ranching, horses, the train tracks. Now, I did my research last night, and where we're going, Baghdad, all of the copper back in the day came out on this train line here. Skull Valley was important because of this line right here going out to Prescott, as the locals say it, Prescott if you're from out of town. And then off to Phoenix, I believe. Okay, so you have some new homes here. This is a different Arizona, that's for sure. You know, it doesn't even feel like desert down here. And I'm sure it's generations of families over the years set up their life here, and it just goes down to the kids, the grandkids. It keeps going generation after generation. And from the looks of it, I mean, there's some nice homes. You can make a decent living ranching in these parts. Got the turkey vultures. Oh, it's about as far as we're gonna get. All right, guys, let's turn around. That might be Skull Valley. That might be it. So let's see if we can talk to someone at that store there.
It's the only place in town that's open right now. The owner is also the owner of Iron Springs Ranch. Okay. So they own 5,500 acres down the street. Okay. They bought the restaurant. They sell their meat here.
There's nothing forever going that direction. Yeah. Except Baghdad, where I'm going.
You're going to Baghdad. Baghdad is a mining town owned by Freeport. I know a little bit because my niece lives there. But yeah, there's a golf course, a post office. There's 3 restaurants, at least, that I'm aware of right now. And it's a great school where my nieces go.
So just its own world out there.
Yeah. And look at here. This is the owner, Claire.
This is Claire.
Yes.
Wow.
How are you?
Claire, my name's Peter.
Nice to meet you.
You too. I'm making a video on the area. I just want to highlight what you got going on here. You're from here?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we live in Skull Valley. We have a ranch about 2 miles up the road there. Skull Valley is absolutely amazing. It's like your typical rural community. Very few buildings, as you can see. This was the old general store.
Right.
And it shut down about 8 years ago. It's now owned by a family. They do some manufacturing out of it, but it's just a beautiful historic building. And then our store, the Forge, was the old gas station. Originally, it was actually a forge. It was built by a blacksmith. It's just amazing. The community here, if you like that sort of old-fashioned community, this is it. I mean, this is it. Our little central area. We've got the train that comes through here 5 or 6 times a day. The old railroad actually used to run through our ranch and go on up to Prescott. We still find all of the old railroad kind of nails and stuff on our ranch when we're kind of grading our roads.
That's when all the copper came out of Baghdad,
Exactly.
right? And went up to Prescott.
But it was also a passenger train, and it would take the businessmen from down in Phoenix, and they'd come up for the weekend and join their wives and children at Iron Springs Camp. So it has that history as well, and that stopped in 1968. That was the last time that ran.
Is there still sort of that pioneering feel to this place?
There really is. I mean, it's a ranching community, a lot of very authentic cowboys. We're a regenerative ranch, which a lot of people aren't familiar with, but it's kind of beyond organic. So
beyond organic.
Beyond organic, very, very clean, focusing on soil health, focusing on nutrient-dense grasses, which then give you much more nutrient-dense food. The omega-3, omega-6 ratio on the beef is different, so it's a lot more healthy.
You're totally geeked out on that.
We are so geeked out on it. It's amazing.
Okay,
and we do tours.
It's going to be a silly question, but it's grass-fed, grass-finished.
Yes, 100%.
Because if it's not grass-finished, who are we kidding, right?
Yeah, exactly. There is a huge difference. I know a lot of people like grain-finished beef, but from a nutrition standpoint, from an anti-inflammatory standpoint, grass-finished is 100% better.
Can people buy your meat anywhere in the country, or do they have to be out here?
No, we just stay with local. That's kind of our thing. We like to stay local, so we're in a couple local restaurants. We sell our beef out of the Forge. We sell at local farmers markets. We are taking it to Phoenix, so we'll be in a slightly bigger area. We still have cattle coming through the street occasionally, sometimes not on purpose. My husband rides his horse down from the ranch, ties it up, and comes in for a meal. You know, it's just very kind of quintessential old American.
Can I show the inside?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Cool. But you got the side-by-sides coming out.
We do. Lots of side-by-sides, lots of bikers, lots of cyclists.
I didn't expect this, to be honest. I thought it would have been way more rustic.
Yeah, we are... I think people don't expect too much, so when they do come, they're surprised. They walk in the door and they're surprised what we've done in here. So.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Beautiful. Are you behind the decor?
Yeah, myself and my contractor kind of put together the idea. If you look over here, we branded a lot of the
brands into the wall. Nice.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of the historic ranches branded in here. We call this the station room because this was once a gas station, so we kept the station room feel. We've got George Phippen artwork on the walls because he was local to Skull Valley. His son still comes in here. So we have his artwork. He kindly lets us exhibit it and sell prints. There was a huge battle between two Indian tribes here, and so there were so many bones and skulls in the fields when they were setting up. The original pioneers were setting up, and so that's why. It's
what year do you know? 1880 something?
Late 1700s, low 1800s,
okay.
Yeah.
The two tribes were the Yavapai and Tono Autumn.
Tono Autumn were here. They're in the south right now, right?
They weren't here. They would come up here and raid the Yavapai.
And then when the settlers came in, they saw all the skulls, and they called it Skull Valley. Okay, so it wasn't between the cavalry and the natives. It was native on native.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's the way it was to the people.
They're all fighting each other. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Yavapai were kind of sophisticated. In other words, they had bows and arrows and stuff like that. And Tono Autumn were big people. They just come beat you up. So
they're like big boned.
Right.
They're like the Samoans of the native.
Yes. And so the Yavapai did a very brutal raid on the Tono Autumn. So they said, okay, we're going to get them. And they set up a trap, and this is where they trapped them. That's why.
Interesting. And you're the pastor here?
Hey, there's two of us.
The other one's walking in.
Okay.
Or he's right outside.
All right. So you grew up in Skull Valley.
Mm-hmm. Born and raised.
Your mother?
Grandmother.
Grandmother. Well, you're so young with me, I can tell.
Yes.
Great. So how is it out here these days?
It's getting busy. It used to be much quieter.
Okay.
More people going on.
How do you feel about it?
I think it's inevitable, and I think it's probably great.
And you grew up here, never left.
I did, but you come back usually.
It brought you back in.
It did. So I grew up here. I grew up with them. My parents were in the military. So
okay.
I lived here. I did the very typical small town thing. Grew up and hit 17, 18, and I was like, peace out. And I left to college, and then thought I was going to go marry some city boy. Ended up marrying a Chino boy, which is just about 40 minutes from here.
With a Chino boy?
Chino Valley, which is the other side of Prescott, but it's another kind of small town.
So you didn't go city slicker, you went Chino boy?
I went, yeah, and found somebody who loved my childhood home as much as I do, if not more, sometimes, I think. So when we both went to nursing school, and we're nurses down in the valley, did the whole city thing, ICU, all of that, and then when we had kids, it was like, well, it's time to go home. So now we're back, and he works at the local VA up here.
Okay, nice.
I actually just left bedside last week, and I'm going to be the school nurse down here now. We have a tiny little school. It's a great little school. It's a school I went to, and now my daughter.
How many kids at the school here?
Right now we have 38, I think.
Yeah.
But it varies through the year.
When you were in school, there were 18.
18.
Okay, so it's growing.
Yeah, it's
cool.
a great. I mean, you can even go down there and sneak in. The gates are usually open.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's a great little school.
Well, thank you all.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm lucky I ran into you.
Well, my husband saw you. I gotta go over there.
Yeah, right.
We watch you pretty religiously, so at any point in time, if you want to check something out, let me know. We're gonna walk by my house. Our house was built in 1962. This used to be one property, and the lady that owned this general store at the time is the one who was the original builder of our house.
Who's this guy?
Oh, this is our neighbors, the Schaefers. Also a family that's been here a very long time.
I came into town and I was just saying to the camera, you know, I bet it's just generation after generation after generation here.
It can be, and it's an interesting dynamic down here. Enough, you three. That's enough. Willow.
Okay, you're an...
Damn, that's it.
Whoa, whoa, you hear that, chat? What?
Chat, we need some W's for Connor
Hold
right
up,
now.
hold up, hold up.
We
hold
need
up,
W's.
Yo. Whoa. We just made a flume beat.
Wait, time out.
Yeah, put the Yukon acapella on there. Yeah. Whoa. Hold up. We are going to pull up Co-Producer, which is the newest plugin from Output. Listens to your track. You give it the key, you type in a prompt, and then it gives you a bunch of suggestions. It's gonna listen for 4 bars. It's gonna figure out what our vibe is.
You could be as specific as you want with this thing.
Groovy percussion.
Let's see what we got.
Okay.
That's already fucking sick.
Okay, that's starting to get there. Yeah, keep going. Oh, hold up. Hold the phone.
We're not playing.
Absolutely not. Put it on the timeline.
Throwing it on. That's how simple it is to do that. What kind of strings? Let's see.
Swelling.
Morgan!
Bo? 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 Where's Morgan?
Are you in my dream too?
This is not a dream. Morgan? What's happening?
Dogs are barking. Woke us up.
Are you hurt?
I think God did it.
Did what, Morgan? Look, Lee, I don't even care if it was him. And you could just have a word with him, and that'd be enough for me. See, it was strange finding the crops that way. The kids were confused by it, and sure take the strangeness away if I knew it was just Lionel and the Wolfenden brothers messing around, that's all. At the movies. Are you sure? All right, then. Thanks for your patience, Lee. Yeah, bye.
Houdini peed. I think he's sick.
Why don't you take him outside? I'll call Dr. Crawford.
He doesn't treat animals.
He'll know what to do. Oh, that was quick, Caroline. I only called you folks 2 hours ago.
Old Mrs. Kendallman twisted her ankle, as she puts it, diving for her life when a bunch of school kids rode down the sidewalk on skateboards. She went down to Thornton's store this morning and started spitting on the new skateboards. Spitting. By the time I got there, Mrs. Kendallman had sprayed the whole damn place. And she must have had a cold or something. I'm telling you, I won't eat for a week.
EVE Online is a vast universe, alive with the unrelenting activity and combined history of its players. Pursuing lives of adventure, warfare, and prosperity, they share this existence in the biggest single shard, free-to-play MMO of all time. Set 21,000 years in the future, EVE takes place in a distant cluster of over 7,000 star systems known as New Eden. It is a rich and diverse universe featuring densely populated havens of relative safety governed by 4 great empires. Hostile systems where player alliances make the rules. Even regions of anomalous and unexplored space that hold their own secrets. You play as a capsuleer, a revered breed of highly...
So what happened to your crops?
Dad's gonna burn these again. It's contaminated. You don't even know what that word means. It's not contaminated. It's just tap water poured in his bowl. It tastes funny. It does not. And besides, he licks his butt every day. I don't think he'll mind. Houdini? Bo, don't run.
Why'd you pick San Francisco to shoot your special?
This is one of the best towns to ever do comedy, and this is the most historic venue you got as far as comedians are concerned, because Lenny Bruce ripped it down here. All the best came through the Bay. What about Richard? What about Robin Williams, Carlin, Mooney? You don't necessarily have to be the biggest star. As long as you come with it and people coming out, they like to see live performances because it's a savvy audience.
San Francisco, are you ready? I don't think we can hear you. Are you ready? Welcome to the stage,
That's all I said. I didn't want to say too much. Guys beating off on the bus means there's something wrong with this motherfucker. He's not wrapped so tight. I didn't want to push him over the edge. As soon as I said something, all these dummies on the bus, now they're brave. He's right. Put your goddamn cock away. I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to see it either. Yeah! Now the guy flips out. All right, everybody, back up. Back the fuck up. I tried to be nice about this. Now everybody freaks out. Oh my God, it's a biological attack. Oh. I'm caught in the middle. I can't lose my cool. I said, hey, everybody, just calm the fuck down or you're gonna get me shot. Let's all just be cool. Let's do what this man says so he'll leave us alone. Now everybody gets quiet. That's better. That is better. And then he started walking up and down the aisles. He was terrorizing us. And then he starts making demands. You in the pink shirt, squeeze your tits together. Oh God, no, no. You, stick your finger in your butt. Why? Oh God, why is this happening? Oh God, oh God. He was working my way. Shit was tight. Just that minute. I got saved, dudes. I was so lucky. This guy at the other end of the bus, he snapped. He lost his mind. I seen it happen. Ah! He screamed out, rush him! He can't come on all of us and charge me out. Ah! And it was like a movie. This homeless dude seen him coming and shot one off. Ah! I dodged that shit like the Matrix, niggas. Oh. The guy behind me wasn't so lucky, y'all. No! That shit was gross. It didn't kill him, but I'm sure that fucked his day up. You're not gonna have a normal day if the homeless dude busts a nut on your forehead and 8:30 in the morning. That's a wrap on the rest of the day. Ah! This guy was freaking out. It burns! Oh! 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 Everyone was standing around looking at him. Even the homeless dude felt bad. I guess he was finished. He came back to his senses. Oh, this is my stop. I said, relax, motherfucker. I had to say something. Relax. Oh, I can't. I got AIDS. I know it. I said, you can't get AIDS from a homeless dude busting a nut on your forehead. That's not how it spreads. I don't even know if that's just true. That's just what I told him, man. He was so scared I had to say something. I don't know where AIDS comes from. Who the fuck knows? Scientists don't even know. Scientists still say AIDS started because somebody had sex with a monkey. Word. After all this research, this is the best explanation that you came up with, mother. Nobody fucks monkeys and people, you idiot. You either fuck monkeys or you fuck people. That's it. There's no in between. You're not gonna get some monkey pussy on Tuesday and then be like, oh, let me call Charlene on Thursday. No. Once you fuck a monkey, that's a firm decision. I'm out of the human pussy game for good. It's ridiculous. You act like monkeys are just as open as waiting for people to fuck them, man. It's ridiculous. The monkeys don't want to be fucked by people. Think about it. Think how hard it would be to catch a monkey and fuck it. That's ridiculous. That's how it had to go down. Who you think you're just gonna walk up to him in the woods and bribe this nigga with fruits and bananas? Hey, buddy. Hey. Yeah. There you go, buddy. Yeah. Yeah. There you go, your big, bright red ass. It's big, bright red booty. You know how strong a monkey is? Would rip your dick off like a celery stalk. Just throw that shit in the tall grass to never be seen again. Hey, dog, we gonna go to the club, pick up some girls. You trying to roll? Nah, man, I'm cool. I'ma stay home, dog. Chill with my monkey. You know how long it took me to train this monkey to suck my dick without peeling it? Last night, Chim Chim jerked me off with his feet. Nigga, only a monkey can show you that kind of love and tenderness. So y'all can keep fucking these people if you want, niggas. More monkey pussy for me. Hooking up with an orangutan next week. That's all I fuck is chimps and orangutans. You know who I feel real bad for is Indians. Everybody feels bad for Indians. They get dogged openly because everybody thinks they're dead. These motherfuckers are not all dead, all right? With my own eyes, I've seen a gathering of 1,500 Native Americans. They were all gathered in one place. The place is called Walmart in New Mexico. There's Indians everywhere. I'd never seen Indians before. I wasn't even sure if they were Indians. It's fucked up, but I asked one of them. It's not nice, but I seen him in the sports section looking at bows and arrows. I had to say something. Excuse me. I don't mean to be rude. Are you an Indian? And he was cool. Yes. Yes, I'm Indian. Still didn't believe him. I had to test them to be sure. This is fucked up. But I had a gum wrapper in my pocket, so I balled that shit up and I threw it on the floor. And a single tear came out his eye. I said, oh, shit. I had so many questions. So what tribe are you from? I am a Navajo. I said, word. I studied you in social studies. You're a hunter-gatherer, correct? He said, I guess so. That's what you wish to call it. I said, why? What do you call it? He said, I am an alcoholic. I said, well, what's your name, dog? He said, please. Dog is my cousin. That's a good guess. My name is Running Coyote. What is your name, friend? And that shit caught me off guard. I mean, I didn't want to say my name was Dave to a motherfucker named Running Coyote. This don't feel good enough. He just put me on the spot. I said, huh? My name, what? Oh, my name's Blackfeet. Then I changed the subject. Forget about me, what's going on with you? I want to meet your chief. Why don't me, you, and your chief and your friends get together tonight? We could have a real live peace pipe smoking ritual. We need to celebrate, nigga. I thought you were dead. And he set it up. It was beautiful. It was just like I dreamed. We was all sitting around. Them Indians was beating the drum. Some other Indians came out the back with a long blanket that was folded in half and put in front of us. Opened that shit up, and on the blanket was a long wooden pipe with feathers. And bags of weed were all over the blanket. Chief walked over. The big ones are 50. The little ones are 25. And these are 10. Me and those Indians got high as shit. I was baked. I told the chief, we was talking, I cut him off. Time out, chief. Sorry to interrupt. Fucking smashed, man. The weed's too strong. I'm itching. This is PCP. The spirits have got me. Chief, the spirits have got me. And the chief threw some water in my face. Calm down, blackface. Splash! I said, hey, it's Blackfeet, motherfucker. Take it easy. Blackfeet, you're welcome to stay amongst me and my tribe for the night until the spirits leave you. And they gave me my own teepee to sleep in, which sounds nice. I personally felt like it was a little fucked up, you know, because they all had houses, man. It's like, why can't I sleep with y'all in the house and watch TV? Nigga, I can't be on this grass all night. Yeah, Indians is rude, man. Everybody's rude. Indians, they eat nasty food. All they ate was corn and shit. Doritos, I think they call it. That's right. People only see the surface. They see the division in our foods. Just because I eat chicken and watermelon. They think that that's something wrong with me. Let me tell you something. If you don't like chicken or watermelon, something is wrong with you, motherfucker. There's something wrong with you. Where are all these people that don't like chicken and watermelon? I'm sick of hearing about how bad it is. It's great. I'm waiting for chicken to approach me to do a commercial, nigga. I'll do it for free, chicken. It's the least I can do. They make fun of Latin people for eating, what y'all eat? Beans, rice, corn. Listen, that's not a reason to hate a motherfucker, all right? It's funny, but it's not a reason to hate. The only reason these things are even an issue is because nobody knows what white people eat. You've been very good at keeping that shit a secret amongst yourselves. I study white people. You don't know that. I'm writing a paper on you. Not even for school, nigga, just to do it, just to get, I'm just doing independent research. I'm spending my money, that's why I'm working so hard. I follow you around grocery stores, they freak out. I just try to peek in the cart, they always say, get away from my cart, nigga, what are you looking at? Chicken and giblets are over there. You must be lost. These are vegetables. I know what you drink. See how quiet I got? Grape juice. Surprise, motherfuckers, you didn't know I knew about grape juice, did you? Oh.